Gwilym, sir, good to see you again. It's been a while. No, it hasn't.
Yeah, wow, almost 24 hours, Lee. Yeah, podcasting is a grueling business, isn't it?
We're podcasting like it's going out of fashion at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's been one of my little lockdown things, or post-lockdown now, I guess, but it's been one of the great things I've enjoyed in August, actually.
Well, do you know what? Because we know one another, obviously, from SEPA stuff and being in the pub and that sort of thing, but I feel like I've grown to know you so much more through the medium of Zoom.
I feel like I can say anything to you, Lee, which is why I'm going to say, what the hell is that shirt?
No, you've ruined it for listeners now because they can't see. We're going to have to do some pictorial representation of it.
I think if the listeners imagine there's three dinosaurs who've just thrown up different coloured foods on Lee, that's kind of what we're getting. That's the image I want to put across here.
It's one of my favourite shirts.
I do like. No, I like it. I wasn't making judgment on dinosaur vomit. It's awesome.
Are you as hot and awfully sweaty as I am today? It's a horrible day today.
It's a bit grim. Enjoyed it last night though, because I sat on the roof in our building after work and had a beer.
Oh yeah, because you were in the office, weren't you?
That was really, really nice. Oh, then went for a really cool. This is one of the things actually that nice to be out of lockdown. Went for a really cool, quirky Chinese meal down Red Lion Street.
Oh, sounds good.
It's a hot pot place that does beef aorta.
Yeah, I think I know the one.
Can't go wrong with a bit of aorta.
Yeah.
Lee Davis and Gwilym Roberts are the two IPs in a pod, and you are listening to a podcast on intellectual property, brought to you by the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys.
Anyway, we probably ought to crack on with the show. Really, really special guest day today. All our guests are special, obviously, but it's not often we get the esteemed presence of senior dignitaries from the EPO, is it? So welcome, Steve Rowan. Hiya, Steve. How are you?
Hi, really good, thanks. Also hot, and I did make an effort and put on a shirt, which obviously you did, Lee, as well, other than Gwilym, who sat in sort of some T-shirt.
Oh, thanks for the little dig back, Steve. That's appreciated, because I wasn't going to have a go at the fact that he's wearing his pyjamas.
You don't know what I'm wearing.
Steve, most people will know you, but do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Sort of set the scene for the listener?
Yes, so as you say, Steve Rowan. I have a long history in the UK Intellectual Property Office. I'll start with where I currently am. Obviously, I'm Vice President 1, the European Patent Office. So just because I'm one, that means that there are others. And in fact, there are two others. So one Vice President covers legal affairs and policy. Another Vice President covers HR, finance, and IT. And then there's me covering the operational side. So currently responsible for some 4,800 colleagues who cover basically everything from the moment the application gets filed, either on paper or in electronic form, all the way through the formalities, the search, the examination, opposition, and then also obviously finally the grant. So the real sort of end-to-end stuff on the operational side. It's practically my 2.5-year anniversary in the EPO. Already, yeah, I know, 2.5 years already. It's quite amazing how fast time goes. I'm based in The Hague. We obviously have the sites in Munich, also Berlin, Vienna, and a small office in Brussels, but I'm based in The Hague. Before my life in the EPO, there was a life. I spent sort of 28 years in the UK Intellectual Property Office, covering a range of roles on the operational side for patents, trademarks, and designs, and also on the policy side. So I'm sure I've come into contact with lots of listeners in different roles over that period. I'm also from South Wales originally, so I'll declare that now. And then, but obviously currently living in The Hague.
Excellent. And how are things in the Netherlands? What's life like for you there?
Well, I think there are the two sides. Obviously, there's the non-pandemic side. Living in The Hague is absolutely great. I live 10 minutes from the beach, 10 minutes from the centre of the city, and so it's a great place to live. You've got that perfect combination. It's obviously a very vibrant European. In fact, it's more of an international city with all the international organisations there. There's lots to do. Everyone's very sporty. There's tennis, there's cricket, there's hockey, there's even a rugby team, which I haven't been able to get to yet because of the pandemic. And as a family, we now own 8 bikes when we never used to own any. And obviously, it does help that there are no mountains and also no valleys in the Netherlands. So
hang on, my maths tells me there's either 4 of you with 2 bikes each, or you've got a big family.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. The statistic I think in the Netherlands is that nearly everyone has 2 bikes.
Right.
There are only 5 in our family, and so therefore some of us have 2 bikes. The Netherlands approach is you have one bike that you don't mind leaving outside a bar, and which therefore might get stolen, and then you have another bike which you use on weekends for sort of cycling around, and you don't want to get stolen. So so several of us have 2 bikes, an old Tweehand bike, so a second-hand bike that you just leave outside the bar, and then it may or may not be there when you come out.
Amazing. How many bikes have you got, Gwilym?
My household has had 4 bikes stolen over lockdown.
Oh, yeah,
It's
you had one
really-
recently. One of your lads had one recently, didn't he?
That's so irritating. Some of it was just mean people actually doing. They can cut through, does it? They can cut through the cable that comes with the D-lock now, just like that. And what some piece of kit they've got. One of my sons did only lock his quick release wheel and not the rest of the bike, so he's still got the wheel. So yeah, but I keep buying them. My sister's got a friend who refurbs them in Nottingham. And I suspect what's happening is that they get stolen here, go to Nottingham, and I buy them back refurbished. And so it's a nice little cycle. I don't know.
My second-hand bike is my favorite bike. It's the one with the back brake, so there's no brakes on the handlebars. And initially I thought, no, I want a brake. I want a bike with brakes on the handlebar. But now I use my Oma feet, as it's called, everywhere. So with the back brake, you just pedal backwards and then you slow
Oh,
down.
like we did when we were kids. We all had those pedal back bikes when we were kids. Well, I certainly did. What about life in the EPO in terms of how is lockdown? How is the pandemic affecting things at the moment, Steve? Is it business still not normal?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, it's very like it is everywhere. We obviously have the different sites. We took front and center very early on was the health and well-being of all of our colleagues, and also obviously the applicants and their representatives. So we took several measures to try and protect the health and well-being of everyone involved. We're still very much looking at that. We have a monthly meeting where we review where we are. We had one just before the summer break. We currently have a maximum of 15% of people on site.
Right.
Because we recognize that some people didn't have the space at home. They couldn't work from home. So we kept the office open right the way through. And we have that sort of around 15% coming in each day. And then we have the rest of the people working from home. And we will review that now in September. But obviously, you just think that the numbers are coming down. We might be able to go up slightly to maybe 30%, 40%, 50% on site. And then suddenly the numbers go back up again. So we're taking a cautious approach. We've obviously given out lots of equipment, lots of screens, keyboards. I mean, one of the funny things, obviously, being an international organization is, you'd think keyboards would be easy. You just order, say, 4,000 keyboards. But of course, they're Swiss German keyboards because they have to be able to cope with French, German, and English. So we have very particular keyboards. And going to a supplier and saying, I want 4,500 Swiss German keyboards, they sort of say, oh, well, you'll have to wait a couple of months for that. So we told people, just take your kit, take it home, and work the best way you can, really.
I've had some nightmares with the keyboards at hearings, actually, because I can never find the at button. Can you email something?
I will let you into a secret here, Gwilym. I use a British keyboard and then I use the international codes for when I want to do the various umlauts and accents, because what I was finding, of course, is the Y and the Z are in different positions. So I was typing away at speed and then I'd look and it would just be complete gobbledygook. So yeah, I personally use British style keyboard.
Before we're going to get substantive in a second, one last quick question about your life. How's your Dutch going?
Oh, het is heel goed, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Spreek je Nederlands?
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I have my Dutch lesson straight after the event this afternoon. So yeah, I've been having Dutch lessons for about a year now, but it's very difficult in the Netherlands because of course everyone speaks such good English. So you start off asking for things in Dutch and then they just answer you in English, and then I answer in Dutch and then they answer back in English. So we have this sort of strange sort of situation.
I think that's the British excuse for not being great at languages, but yeah.
I'm persisting.
Yeah. Good for you. Well done. Well done. So probably about a year ago, we talked to the big boss. So I love the VP1, VP2, VP3 thing. It sounds like Spectre. So we had a chat with the Blofeld of the EPO, Mr. Campinos.
Oh no, I could see him sat there now stroking his cat. I was very careful with what I said then.
I bought him a dragon, Gwilym, so he has a dragon on his desk, but he doesn't have a cat.
He can stroke the dragon. One of the things he mentioned in last year's podcast, which we had to get approval to actually broadcast because it was a bit of a scoop, was that the EQEs were indeed going electronic. And obviously this is much early days of the pandemic when it was a big deal. The EQs have called off that year, quite rightly in retrospect, although it seemed amazing that it could happen like that at the time. What is going on now? What's happening with EQEs?
Well, I think firstly, it's important to congratulate everyone who passed, including many colleagues at the EPO. So obviously that's a great achievement, and I know it reflects a lot of hard work. And like you said, Gwilym, when we made that decision to postpone that year, there were a lot of people saying that's the wrong decision. You shouldn't do that. I mean, it was a very difficult position, and obviously hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it was the right decision to do. But at the time, we just thought it's not possible to plan. People will continue to revise, people will build up, and then obviously not able to travel. And I think if you look at what happened last year, there were lots of successes there, 3,800 candidates, lots of people involved in preparing the 5 exam and the 80 invigilators. So I think if there were several positives, obviously we managed to get it done. That's important because, one of our primary roles is obviously to ensure that we get those qualifications through, people can start their careers. So I think that was very positive. Obviously, there were some teething problems, so we apologize for that. I think we're looking ahead now to next year. The EQE will also be fully online and possibly even the 2023 exam. And what we're looking to do now, working with the software providers, we did 2 surveys of all the people who took part. Lots of really, really great feedback from that. So for example, 92% wanted to be able to divide the screen and 65% wanted a text editor. So we're really looking at how we can build those features in. The other really big feedback, which we've been able to take on board is, and there's no need to do it this way now, we can actually spread the exams out over 2 weeks. So for 2022, the exams will be spread out over 2 weeks. You won't be doing them all in a very short space of time. So, and the other really important thing as well, which we learned from this year we did do some mock sort of exams where people could log in and test the system, and we will do more of those next year. And it will be really important for those people taking part to take part in those mocks. We don't want people logging in just before the exam and then finding out that their systems aren't compatible. They need a software upgrade. We need to find those things out well in advance. A bit like when we started this podcast, my sound didn't work. I had to log back out and log back in again. It's those sort of things, just classic things that we have to do now when we work digitally, testing things out. Does the system work? Can people see me? Can people hear me? Can I log in? Yes, I can. Right, fine. Then obviously logging in then on the day of the exam.
No, as you said, there were teething problems, but I think I suspect the feedback afterwards has been in points of detail rather than general anger or anything. And of course, Sally SEPA was dead proud that we managed to do it with, frankly, a lot more limited resources. So well done the team at SEPA.
No, Steve, by going fully online, you have now deprived UK candidates of going to really niche locations around the UK.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I did obviously have a role before with the UK office, and I think Bristol Temple Mead Station was used. That resulted in a lot of complaints, as did in fact our own conference centre in the UK Intellectual Property Office, with noise, too hot, too cold, etc.
Imagine never having those problems again.
I know. But just to say thank you as well to SEPA, because Gwilym, you mentioned there your previous experience, and we drew on the experience of you and others who had actually already done electronic exams, and that was obviously incredibly helpful for us as well, setting out on that road.
Yeah, I think the solutions are quite robust, and the candidates, frankly, were really robust. Just got on with it, which must have been quite stressful. I mean, I remember those exams and pretty terrifying. One thing I personally hated most of all was being in a massive stressy room full of stressed, scared people. So that might be an improvement. I don't know. Some people might thrive on that.
Isn't that just getting a patent attorney ready for working life, though?
It was, wasn't it? So that was something where I think the EPO made everyone really, really happy. I want to touch on a topic now where the topic that I think makes patent attorneys across Europe angrier than anything else. Can you guess what it is, Steve?
No, I'm struggling on this one.
It's, and Lee, you won't believe this, we get cross about the strangest things. It's description amendments. You know the story better than I do, I'm sure, but there's a lot of people out there who are finding that it's a niche point, but actually it's really important on the day-to-day basis. People are very stressed at some of the requirements being put in place. Just interested to know kind of what's going on about that. What is the EPO hearing, the concerns and all that?
Yeah, I mean, we really want to obviously listen to people's concerns on that. I think, if you look at, I think it was back in the autumn of about 2020, we gave our examiners internal guidance on how to communicate in these cases, and how, as you say, to bring the description in line with the amended claims. I think from our perspective, that's very much something for obviously the applicants to do, but we wanted to try and help. So we wanted to try and sort of set out very clearly where we saw that the description wasn't in line anymore with the amended claims. And obviously the background to that is that that's always been the case. We've always had that as part of our case law. It's always been practice. We recognize perhaps that we weren't applying that practice very consistently. So part of this was also about us being more consistent. But we see in case law from the UK court and also the German court how if there are inconsistencies, the court will look at those and then use the description to interpret the claims, and therefore that can sometimes result in an invalid patent. So from our perspective, it's part of quality, it's part of ensuring that we have that really clear patent at the end of the process. The important point I would make is, if people do get these these communications from the examiner, don't be afraid to Zoom or to communicate with the examining division to have that informal consultation with them. I think one of the features that we've noticed of the pandemic is that there are far more informal communications between the division and the applicant, and we see this as an example of somewhere where that people can pick up the phone, they can have the conversation, they can even share screens and then agree on the way forward. Of course, because it's a Zoom call or a Skype call, we can't actually finalize the decision. Then it would still have to be confirmed in writing so that we can have that traceability for third parties. But certainly in a way of identifying a way forward and reaching agreement, we think this is a really good way for the applicant and the examiners to interact.
Oh, thank you. And that's a good pragmatic and practical bit of guidance, which is enormously appreciated. However, I do know that there'll be lots of attorneys who will have now stamped on their headphones that little bit there about the keeping an eye on German and UK court activity. And let's not get into that debate now. This is a cheery podcast and we're all on the same side. But what I think quite a few people want to have a proper discussion with the EPO about where that comes from and various other issues. And I think you pick up the concerns that people have. Can be very onerous. Yeah. And I think in-house attorneys don't have time for it, and private practice attorneys, they have applicants and clients saying, well, what's this bill for? Why are we doing this? So you understand all the issues, and I said this is not the place for the debate, but hopefully the EPO will continue to listen and maybe set up some fora for further discussion and debate, because it's really getting on people's nerves.
We're going to have a workshop as well in the autumn, so there'll be more information on that soon. But as you said, it's something where we sort of changed the guidelines thinking we were bringing them into line with practice, and then it's provoked quite a strong reaction. The guidelines, obviously, we, for the first time ever, we put those out fully for review. We've always reviewed them with the Standing Advisory Committee, SACIPO, but again, Antonio was very keen on making sure that everyone could have an opportunity to comment. We've done our first attempt like that, and we've learned from that, and we will also do more extensive user consultation on guidelines revision going forward. So the next round of guidelines revision will be even more open, even more transparent, with more opportunities for people to comment.
Thank you. And I mean, I sit on that particular working group for SACIPO, and I can confirm to the patent attorneys listening that the EPO has definitely heard the concerns. So the message is getting through, and we're getting positive responses. No guarantees of change, I accept that, but guarantees of dialogue, which is a really, really good first step. I'll move on from that because otherwise I'll get into the detail. And that's definitely not much fun on a podcast. Lee, shall I keep cracking on?
You keep going, mate. I'm happy just to sit here and listen and be a passive participant this time around. You're doing magnificently.
Passive-aggressive participants, that's what we want. Keep needling me. So I think actually, the magic of podcasts breaks obviously the temporal sequence of events. But Steve, you and I and a couple of other EPO speakers go straight from recording this podcast to a webinar focusing on one principal topic, which is the story over video conferencing or proceedings and all of that. You've already mentioned informal interviews as well, and that's a really exciting development too. Obviously, we've just seen time of recording, just seen G121 come out from the enlarged board, and I'm completely aware that you're the EPO and that's the enlarged board, and they say what they say and we all read it together. But obviously got a lot of commentary out about the fact that decision has answered the question during the pandemic, but we don't know what the reasons are yet. We haven't really seen the lengthy bit. It has not answered the question for what happens after the pandemic, and anyone who hasn't read it do not need consent to do video conferencing hearings during the pandemic or the emergency situation. Any insights into how it's going, what the stats on VICO, and how are people at the EPO enjoying it?
Yeah, I think, if you look at where we started, obviously we had VICO for examination oral proceedings for quite some time, but that was obviously with the parties' consent. The moment the pandemic started, we moved those across, the examination ones across straight away. Then in the May, we moved across our oral proceedings on opposition, where they're both parties consented. So we started a pilot where both parties consented, and we carried out about just over 300 of those last year. It was very clear partway through that for various reasons, people weren't coming forward to have those. And so we took the decision then that from January, there would be the presumption. It's important to say it's a presumption for oral proceedings by VICO. You can obviously request for them not to be held in that way and to be postponed even further. But we felt that it was really important. We could see the backlog starting to come. We had 6,000 more cases pending at the end of the year than we anticipated, and we needed to get things moving just from the point of view of access to justice, and that obviously includes timely access to justice. So since that decision obviously had a very big effect, we've held over 2,300 already this year on opposition. And I think if you look at it, we've had 5-day hearings, we've had hearings with 11 opponents, we've had hearings where we heard 6 witnesses. Importantly as well, from a transparency point of view, we've had more public attending than ever before. So we had 80 on one case, but many of the cases involved 1 or 2 members of the public. And of course, the other thing where we had to build up this experience, again, working with CEPA and other organizations, we started off with ones where there weren't translation. We've now had 700 hearings with simultaneous interpretation. So again, there's lots of developments there as we've gone along. One thing I would say about the reaction from the profession, we obviously monitor the complaints about the process. We're down to 5 complaints in June, 4 complaints in May. So we see a growing acceptance. We're also obviously asking at the end of every hearing, and I would encourage anyone who has a hearing to take part in this, at the end of every hearing, people get given a website link to give their comments, their concerns, their suggestions. We really respond to those, and we see a growing, some people actually saying, I didn't think this would work. I was a bit worried about representing my client in this way, but this really worked. I could see everyone. I really felt I made my case. So we see a growing acceptance of the oral proceedings by VICO, and also a recognition, obviously it cuts down on travel, time, expense for the applicant and also for the attorney.
Thank you. And I think CEPA's position's been pretty clear, which is that we support it if it works. And it's exciting that the experience is pointing in that direction. I mean, my personal statement on this is that it seems so obviously the future, and the world has moved so effortlessly to the virtual world that I've said this before, in 5 years' time, I think people will say, did you seriously fly to Germany to do what you just did? Or, did you seriously go to the Hague, wherever it might be? I mean, why would you have done that travel? So I really hope that as the world just gets so used to this way of communicating, we'll move on there. So that's me. For some reason, I've taken over the podcast. I'll stop.
Well, we just to mention, I don't know whether people know, but I won't say last week because I don't know when this is going out, but the 13th of July, we published an interim report, basically just facts and figures about the experience so far and the responses. And obviously, we'll also do a consultation now in September. So a consultation with all of the user groups, all of the users, just to establish what their views are on VICO for opposition and examination. And then obviously we'll publish that report before the end of the year.
Oh, thank you. Again, all the information is all incredibly helpful. And, I think CEPA's been trying to use it to actually help educate our members. We're very keen to be a profession that's absolutely ready to do video conferencing at the drop of a hat. And I think the training's gone really well. We've had the numbers are incredible, aren't they, for those webinars? There's like 400 people.
Oh, yeah. We get many hundreds each time. It's amazing. And also the feedback we get. Whenever we have conversations with our members, those who've been involved in the process see that it's the future. They go into it sometimes with concerns, a little bit wary around the technology, but once they've done it, they're sold on it.
My daughter did take a fabulous photo of me when I had lockdown hair, and I did a hearing, and my upper half was besuited and tied and everything else. My lower half was a pair of jogging bottoms and some slippers. And I did look.
Hang on. I saw you turn up in Munich once like that, though.
I would also say that the headsets that you must wear when you're doing the oral proceedings for the benefit of the interpreters also act as a very good headband if you do have lockdown hair. So there's always really an added reason why you should be wearing the headset with the required frequency level, as well as being helpful for the interpreters.
Yeah, I was relying on that for quite a while. But good. Thanks for all that, and let's see how it pans out. And in particular with this enlargeable decision, I'm very interested to see the reasons, to see if they've been written to kind of cut out reopening the issue post-pandemic. Who knows? I kind of hope so, because it seems a shame to get all those awesome brains together and then just deal with a short-term question. Brill. So Liam, carrying on. That's good, isn't it? You happy with that? Yeah. So one of the next one we wanted to talk about actually was we wrote down the rumors, and that's been changed. There's no rumors.
What rumors?
The rumors. What the topic we understand is to be discussed is quality and collaboration. But that you can see how immediately that's going to give rise to some rumours. Patent attorneys, I think we've all been quite paranoid about the EPO possibly starting to add additional quality metrics on top of what somebody very cleverly pointed out was an excellent quality framework, that is to say the EPC. but it's very much quality and collaboration. So do you want to talk us through what the plan is there?
I think, well, I think one of the rumors you're probably talking about, I'll come to. But I think if you look at the strategic plan, the very central pillar, the very central goal is about quality. It's about basically delivering quality services in a very simple way on time. So we've called it quality simply delivered on time. We have a whole program of activity in that with various different projects. I think so some of the examples is we're basically unpicking each part of the process. So we're doing what we call a QOps on it, where we basically get all of the formalities examiners who are actually doing that role together and say, if we were to start again, how would you do this? And this isn't about rewriting the EPC. This is about, the file goes from me to you, to Lee, back to you again. Well, why actually does that happen? Oh, well, because it's always been done that way. So we're really looking at that and looking at how we can design out places where those errors occur. So we all know that every time there's a handoff between people, there's an opportunity for an error. So we've been looking at that and we've had fantastic responses. So when we looked at search, how can the quality of search be improved? We had 2,000 ideas. Then the examiners and formalities get together, they evaluate those ideas, then we identify then which ones are process, which ones are practice, which ones require IT changes. So I'll give one example on the search, and that is, again, people outside won't realize this, but when the examiner compiles the search and the written opinion, they actually have to write the information out twice, cut and paste sometimes. They don't, you'd think that they enter the information onto the search report and then the same information gets reprinted onto the examination, onto the written opinion. No, it doesn't. And one of the big feedbacks from users is there's inconsistency between the written opinion and the search report. Well, yes, that's purely down to human error when people are cutting and pasting and moving the information around. So we will design the new system so that they only enter that information twice. We're looking at using AI to look at, we write lots of the comments on files. This application looks to be an Article 1232. Have you considered this aspect here? We're looking to actually capture those comments to then learn from those and to look at the areas where we need to help to retrain. We're looking at having, we've just launched a new tool which called Ellis, which actually helps the examiner. It identifies who's the expert on this field. You've got a problem here on your application. Who is the expert? And it will list the experts. It will tell them where they get the best information. Now, with regard to the collaboration, there's lots of collaboration, obviously, within the division. We're really encouraging that, getting the examiner to use the very best skills. The division might not come from the same team. We frequently see now, you take additive manufacturing, we have usually nearly every application includes the CAD file, it includes the compound being used, and it also includes the mechanism for the relevant printing or manufacture. So getting the right examining division might be bringing 3 examiners from 3 different areas together. So that's collaboration internally. And then if we look at collaboration with the applicant, again, I spoke about this being far freer with the collaboration. The president has called it moving from 2D. We still have a very sort of Victorian system of patent. You send something in, we stamp it, we look at it, we send something back. It's a bit like a tennis match as well. We try and score points off each other. 15 love, that was me, you didn't respond to that. Oh no, 15 all, you've responded. Let's try and make it more 3-dimensional. Let's move from a 2D world to a 3-dimensional world where we're working on this product together. Yes, the patent examiners are applying the EPC. Yes, you are trying to get the best result for your client, but basically at the end of the day, we want the right patents given in the right format, and we want the patents which shouldn't be granted not to be granted, so they're not a barrier to innovation. We want the patent system really doing what it should be doing. So there's the work going on there, and then there's the final bit which I think you might be referring to, which is we've been looking at what we call quality at source. Obviously, the applications start with you and the legal representatives. So we've been looking at what are the common mistakes? Margin size, text size, figures on the formal side. We've also been looking at the substantive side. The purpose for this isn't to rank people and say this company is number 1, makes the least errors, this company is the worst. The purpose is to have a conversation with those companies, because what we found is when we've gone out as a part of a pilot, these companies don't know. They don't know that their applications have quite a high error rate. And of course, they're making those changes, and that reduces costs for you. So it's a positive. If your company is making a lot of errors, we're sending a lot of letters back. You already referred to letters coming back. Then that causes costs for your client and for you. No, if we can get things right first time and we can help you do that, and again, if we can help the filing systems to spot these errors so that you don't actually send them in before they're right, that's what this is about. So it's not about ranking or trying to sort of say one company is better than another. This is about us learning together, working on the application together so we get it in the right format as early as possible in the process.
Thank you, and I'm sure that'll put some minds to rest. And sounds pretty sensible to us. As you say, it's kind of a time-saving thing. I've always thought the examination process, you do need time to think and to get instructions and all that kind of thing, but it is basically the slowest conversation that's ever been held. You say something and you wait about a year and someone says something back, by which time you've completely forgotten what you said and why you said it, and you have to go back to that, all the source. So anything that can be done, I think, to streamline that whilst leaving enough time into the quality to remain feels important. You also made the interesting also about the getting the right examiner for the right technology. Just general comment, which is that actually, did you say how many examiners you had? Sorry,
I didn't, but I have just over 4,000.
Yeesh. So, I mean, how did you find 4,000 legal and scientific experts who are also trilingual? It is actually pretty remarkable when you think about it.
So I have to pay credit. I have to pay credit to the colleagues. They are, and they are not just they're double doctorates. They're obviously masters, as you say, triple languages. Most of them obviously 4 or 5, because although we have French, German, Belgium, etc. Examiners, they're also obviously Spanish, French. We have I think it's 34 nationalities represented from our member states. So nearly all member states have colleagues in the office, and as you said, amazing to be able to operate in all of those 3 languages, not just at a casual level, asking for a beer in a bar, but having an argument with an attorney in German, in French, in English is a real credit. And I do want to say as well, given the circumstances that we've all been working under in the last sort of 14 months, again, their credit to them for the way in which they've been able to adapt to the new tools, new processes. I mean, one of the things that people again might assume about the EPO is it's incredibly electronic. In fact, we were entirely paper-based. So we had over 1 million paper files in circulation, whizzing around the building, triggering all sorts of actions being used. Overnight, we had to, and colleagues in formalities and examiners had to change completely the way they worked. So go entirely electronic and electronic workflows, electronic processes. So, a big credit to them for having been able to work in that way so well, I think. I mean, again, users will have their view, but I think one of the things we set out to do was to provide as good a continuity of service as possible. And I think thanks to their work, I hope that people feel that that's been the case.
Which actually takes us neatly to the last thing we wanted to just chat with you quickly about. And Lee, you've touched on this already a little bit, which is the EPO. I think you did a future of work report not that long ago. Paperlessness, video conferencing, informal Zoom interviews, all of that does seem to be pointing towards a more virtual offering from the EPO generally.
Yeah, we will actually we will have recently published an update on that, and I think it's important that the document is towards the new normal, because we're still very much in the middle of a difficult pandemic. There's still restrictions on travel, etc. But what we realized we needed to do was to look at how are we going to work differently. So, like you mentioned, teleworking, both for us and our colleagues. The office did have some teleworkers, but not very many. But there's a very clear message that people want more flexibility. It brings the issues you spoke about. Increased flexibility of being able to where you work, when you work, how we communicate with each other. The part there around, let's take this opportunity to look at how we interact. Cut down those long periods of time where, as you say, people forget the file and then have to read back into the file, make it more of a dynamic process. And then also look at our buildings, because one of the clear messages from colleagues, and I'm sure it applies to the profession as well, is that people come into work the building for lots of different reasons. You mentioned sitting up on the roof and enjoying the view from your offices in central London. So people go in for lots of different reasons. And obviously, the strong sense of community was something which people were really worried about losing. So that's something that we'll have to pay really close attention to when we look at the new normal. How can our offices function as obviously a work hub, but also a social hub, a sports hub? We obviously have the canteens and coffee areas and things like that. So lots of different things that the building will have to do for different people. Some people want quiet space. Some people will want to meet people and talk and chat. So we're definitely looking at our buildings and how they can be more flexible in that respect.
Yeah, you definitely need a snooker room like in the patent office.
Well, the snooker room actually in the UK Intellectual Property Office, I should emphasise, not the EPO, Gwilym, was actually moved into a more an area very like that. So there was a pool table there as well for those people who wanted to play pool instead of snooker. There was even an Xbox area. So that area really was an area where people could go and relax over lunch or in a break and then go back to their workspace. So I think it's that sort of dynamic. I mean, the EPO has fantastic sports facilities which staff really make use of, tennis courts, gyms, indoor squash courts, a really good offering. And of course, people are missing that. People are missing being able to come to the building, to work in the building, to network, but also to enjoy themselves while they're in work. Again, as an expat community, it can't be underemphasized that the buildings in the different cities also act as they're more than just a place of work. They're also a focus point for the staff, because often they will be away from their families and friends. And so therefore work takes on, and the building takes on a more important significance for them.
Steve, we're there or thereabouts time-wise, I'm afraid, because I know that both you and Gwilym have got other things to crack on with together today. But we always round this up, first of all, by saying thank you. So thank you very much for spending your time with us. But I always try and come up with some kind of quirky little question at the end. So it feeds back to where we started this conversation. You were telling us about your new life in the Netherlands. What do you miss? What would you like to come back and take back to the Netherlands with you?
I think that's quite an easy one, and it is British sausages. So I have yet to find nice sausages in the Netherlands. The beer is fine. The fresh fruit and vegetables are fine. But yeah, I've tried lots of different butchers, but I have yet to find one that does a good British banger. So there we are. And
you can't buy those online and get them delivered then?
Well, obviously, I don't want to get political and talk about Brexit, but meat products and cheese are no longer allowed to be brought into the Netherlands. So I would not even be able to bring them across in my car. So I would have to try and source them from somewhere in the. There is an expat shop, so there is a British shop in the Hague. I think that in fact there are two, so you can buy your Kellogg's cornflakes and things like that. But maybe I should go there and see if they have sausages.
Do you have a favourite British sausage?
No, I'm a Sainsbury's shopper, I have to say. So I don't go for anything in particular, but I do. Their Taste the Difference. I'm probably doing a bit of an advert. The Taste the Difference range is the one that I go for, and I am missing those, as is my son. So when we come back, that's always his things. Like first lunch back, can we have sausage?
Gwilym, what's your favourite meat product then? Let's finish.
I was going to say we've moved into the sharpest end of investigative journalism here, asking the DG1 of the EPO what his favourite sausage is. What's my favourite meat product? Yeah, those sausages actually. I put the sausages in there. Definitely the ones with little bits of apple in. But I was going to add one thing actually, is that when we lived in Hong Kong when I was a kid, every time anyone came out, my dad always made them pack in the suitcase a Savoy cabbage. You see them come into the house and kind of pull out this awful crinkly thing from the middle of their clothes. I think, are you happy now? Lee, what's your favourite?
I thought I'd got away with it then. I thought you'd forgotten.
What's your favourite meat product?
I've probably got two. One, I don't have that much. I'm a big haggis fan, but I don't eat haggis anywhere near enough. But the other is a Scottish thing as well. I love a lawn sausage, which is LORNE, good old square sausage. I have no idea what goes in it, but it tastes phenomenal. Well, Steve, thank you for joining us. Gwilym, I'm going to see you on the next one. Let's say goodbye for now.
See you shortly.
Bye-bye.